asked James Barkley what it is really, and he said it's track dependent because some tracks they're better and some
Grip
others.
feels high but very peaky.
Okay, copy. So just hold for now, just hold for now. You get ready to go, but you hold. We're just creating a buffer because obviously Jake is going in front now for pit boost next run.
So he's talking about the grip feeling very peaky there. What's he referring to?
That means that when the grip window is quite small, but it's good, but in a very small window, meaning you have to operate very precisely there and not overdrive the car, and you can extract really good grip, but it's not easy to get it. So the car can be quite pointy in some moments, like with the front very strong, but then it would wash out, and then you have a bit of understeer. So it's not a easy situation to extract most of the grip.
No, the double yellow that's just been cleared down at turn 2 and turn 3. It looks like whatever was gone wrong there. I wonder if it was Nick Cassidy, because he's driving pretty slowly here at the moment, whether he's been involved in a little spin maybe down there.
No, basically they're on the cool lap to maximize the cooling of the tire, as also it's an indicator, or it's peaky, meaning the grip is very good if you're really in the window. So doing a cooling lap will help that.
Let's have a look here at Cassidy then. He's going through turn 2. Oh, he has a spin, yeah.
I did.
So, yep, going through turn 2 into turn 3 and over the curb as well. Thankfully, no harm done. Well, a few moments ago we were talking about Dan Ticktum, as we just saw a couple of drivers taking evasive action there. And speaking of Dan Ticktum, he's currently fastest in this session with just under half an hour to go. Let's get down to Saunders, who's in pit lane. He's catching up with their team principal, Alex Wee.
Thanks, Tom. I mean, going off the back of that first podium for the team in Tokyo, you must have so much confidence going this weekend. And then following up, Dan's currently top of the timings. Everything's going well so far.
Yeah, when I walked out, we were still on top, but it's still FP1 for 10 minutes. So you don't know the real pace, but at least it's a good start. I would say we were one of the quickest cars since Monaco. And we finally transformed that to a podium in Tokyo. So that is a big boost of confidence, a big relief for both the team and the drivers. And but very quickly after Sunday night, we have a bit of celebration. Monday, Tuesday, we're back at office. We knew that that's only a start. We should have much more. So hopefully the next time on podium will be another step up, or even 2.
You think we'll have long to wait for that moment?
I think it could happen tomorrow, and any race, in any race now, I think we got a chance to be on the podium.
Competition is fierce as ever. Thanks, Alex.
Formula is super tight, even for the best team. They will have a good and bad weekend, but we have to arrive every sections, every race, every qualify. We believe we could be on top.
That's what we like to hear. Thanks, Alex.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thanks to Alex, thanks to Saunders there down in pit lane. So buoyant words of encouragement there for the team, and rightly so as well, given the performances that we've seen from them over the last few weekends in particular. Cupra Kiro really seeming to come into their own, and this a weekend that we're expecting the Porsche powertrain in particular to be quite strong at. So let's see how this one is going to work out for the teams and the drivers with the Porsche powertrains here. Looking here at Nick de Vries as we ride on board with the Dutchman. He was in a spot of bother after the Tokyo weekend, Andre, because, well, he was involved in a couple of incidents in the race, one of which we're led to believe, essentially, from Jaguar, that he's essentially cost Mitch Evans 60 grid places going into this weekend. Essentially, there was contact in one of the races in Tokyo, damaged Mitch Evans' car. They couldn't get it repaired in time for the race. As such, they had to replace a load of different components, and now he's going to be starting, well, 60 places, not 60 places back quite literally, because he didn't start at the back of the grid, but he's going to have to then take a drive-through penalty, stop-go penalty, something along the lines of that during the race.
Yeah, it was super annoying for Mitch Evans, because it's not really his fault, you know. He had the right to be there, and Nick de Vries tried to keep his position, but coming out of the pits, he just overdid it a bit, and you know, the one who had to pay the most consequences was Mitch. It's the rules say that you're only allowed to have certain amounts of parts, and if you exceed that, then you get grid penalties. So
I need more support in the rear. At the very first movement, the car is very oversteer.
Copy.
yeah, Lucas de Grasse is here talking to his engineer, meaning support from the rear. He needs to calm the rear down to be able to carry more speed through the corners. Means that his car is on the oversteer side, so let's see how they can improve that. But that will be probably always the case on a circuit like this, because you overheat more the rear tires than the front tires. So you're trying to find stability as much as you can for this kind of circuits. On the street track, you try to have a good rotation, so you spend least amount of time to understeer, meaning the front axle sliding. So you want the car to rotate really quickly to be able to point out straight. But here, to carry speed in all these long bends, you want to have a stable rear to trust the car and send more speed into the corners.
Yep, the supportive rear end is very important. 25 minutes to go of this session as we look at the two DS Penske drivers going through the fast sweeping left and right-handers of turn 7 and 8, just coming through in towards the final sector. This is where the track, for those who are watching this circuit in Formula E's guys for the first time, will look a little bit unfamiliar to you, because we peel off into this tight and twisty chicane, which was the scene of some drama last year. We saw Sandberg clattering into Nick de Vries in the race on Saturday.
I wonder if both drivers are driving together to find out what the slipstream effect is, and they're preparing the race and to understand how much energy they're saving behind and what indications that will give them for the race, and how they can prepare their strategy in that way. Because obviously when you drive alone, you consume more energy with the wind resistance, but when you tuck behind someone else, you're more efficient, and the figures are different, and depending on how many laps you spend behind someone, that could, obviously save you some energy and put you in a better place.
Yeah, think about it like a stage on the Tour de France. If you see riders, sort of in a pack where they're saving energy behind, then they'll find the sort of go point later on. As we look at Robin Freins getting nice and sideways out of the final corner and kicking up a bit of dust.
Also probably needs more support from the rear axle.
Yeah, not the only driver who we've heard in some strife in terms of the car setup so far at the early stage of the practice session here this weekend. As we look at Nico Müller just jumping out of pit lane for Andretti, as Sandberg comes across the timing line down to T1. So 23 minutes left to go in this session. It is Mitch Evans who's currently quickest from Max Günther, Nick de Vries, Pascal Wehrlein and Eder Mortara. So a good spread of different manufacturers in the top 5.
Yeah, looks like the tires are taking a bit of a beating, to be honest. I can see some grinding front left and inside shoulder on the rear axle. Box this line.
It's an interesting point about tyres, because it's a much faster circuit than we had a fortnight ago in Tokyo, and clearly a lot more load on the tyres, and drivers struggling with that even at this early stage of the session.
Yeah, it is. Because the drivers can so easily push the limits here, and like I mentioned before, like laterally, always stressing the tire, and always being a bit in a slip angle. So it's really stressing the tires, and especially the surface of the tires. So that's creating the graining. You need to try to be able to stay more within the grip of the tire, but that could be a bit too slow. And then the only way to get the speed is to slide, but yeah, you make the tires suffer. So it is going to be a tricky science to understand. It's always the hardest one to understand for the teams and the drivers, how to extract the most out of the tires for the one lap, but then also for the race, which it also is going to be very important for your energy efficiency. If you're not really good extracting everything out of the tire or on a consistent way, it could cost you a lot for the whole race.
Yeah, no doubt about it. We'll see how the drivers are going to be able to manage it over the course of this weekend. You see Wehrlein fighting the car as he is pushing on quite significantly now. Fastest in the first sector, fastest in the second sector, makes his way through the third and final sector. And what is this going to look like here for the reigning world champion? Just jumping over the curbs through the final couple of corners. into that right-hander, blasted out and across the timing line. This is a full attack mode lap, and he goes into the 1 minute 9 second barrier for the first time as well. A 109.854 for the German then, and a wry nod of the head for Florian Modlinger there inside pit box. His drivers first and 7th place respectively in this session at the moment. As we said, we're expecting Porsche powertrains to be quite strong here because their efficiency is really good, and the races here expected to be quite energy important. Looking at Dan Ticktum as he makes his way through the rest of the season, 8th quickest for the Britain currently, and love to see him do well again here this weekend. Likewise for Taylor Barnard as well. What's his future going to look like in Formula E? Speaking of drivers' futures, Andre, there's a lot of whispers now sort of going around the paddock, and it's actually been reported by the race going into this weekend that we possibly could see Nick Cassidy making an exit from Jaguar, maybe moving over to a Stellantis powered team for season 12.
Yeah, that seems like pretty official without being official, that he's leaving Jaguar. Whether he's going to Stellantis or somewhere else is still a question mark, but that is the tendency, and it's surprising. I thought he would have found a new home at Jaguar for a longer future, but you know, he's always looking for a brighter future, and maybe the fact that this year the Jaguars are not as competitive, and maybe there are other factors that he doesn't like about being in the team, is giving him the opportunity or the wish to go somewhere else for to win a title. And I think the guys at Stellantis definitely know how to win races and how to put a good team together, and I think they're pushing for a good future. So be interesting. So that's one thing, and who will go to Jaguar and replace him?
Well, that's the crucial question, and we'll talk more about that in a few moments' time. Jake Hughes, who turns 31 today, happy birthday to him. He's just gone 2nd quickest in the Maserati, but it's Taylor Barnard who currently tops the session for Neon McLaren. Teammate Sam Bird in 18th place, but currently on an attack mode lap, so expect to see him moving up the order. Let's go down to Saunders in pit lane, catch up with their team principal Ian James.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, as we can see, Taylor at the top of the standings. There's been plenty to celebrate this season, as there was this time last year in Shanghai. But how much of that can you transfer into this season?
I think we've got a momentum there that we can definitely build on. I think, as you say, there's been good things to celebrate, but we know we've left some stuff on the table as well. So I think the main focus now is on capitalising on every opportunity that we've got, and hopefully having a good weekend this weekend.
We talk a lot about Roland's lead in the championship, but just looking above you, you've got a fight going on with the Porsche powered cars of Antonio Villicosta and Pascal Wehrlein. Taylor seemingly unfazed by that challenge, speaking him on the track walk today.
Yeah, I think unfazed is a great way to put it, actually. We've said time and again the maturity that he's got sort of belies his years, and it's great to see that sort of continuing at the moment. So he's super cool, calm and collected, and I think that sort of bodes well as we go into this weekend. And as you see, he's putting in some good, strong laps here in FP1, so we just need to build on that now.
His tenacity and his bounce back ability from, you know, things like incidents or damage, he's like a veteran in a rookie disguise, Taylor Barnard, isn't he?
Yeah, he is. As I say, the maturity's there, and it's just been really good to see, because obviously he's the big news coming into this season. He was the rookie. We've obviously worked with him for a little while, and we were able to see how he approaches things. So for us, it's not a surprise that he's been able to sort of stay, as I mentioned before, cool, calm and collected. But it's great now that he's showing everybody else what he can do as well. So he's going to keep his feet on the ground. I've got no doubt about that. We just need to make sure that we get those results in, and hopefully that first win as well.
Thanks, Ian.
Perfect, thank you.
Thanks, Ian. Thank you to Saunders down in pit lane. So positive signs then for Neon McLaren. And what are we looking at for their future lineup as well? Because obviously a bit of uncertainty as to what they're going to look like for 2026. The McLaren name will be exiting Formula E. Will Barnard stay a part of that team? Will he be moving on to pastures new? Do you look at him maybe for a replacement for Cassidy at Jaguar, perhaps, or maybe even somewhere else? I have to say, if I was a gambling man, I would have to be looking at the other seat at Nissan, because if you look at Oliver Rowland, he's done a great job, and I'm not saying that Norman Natter hasn't. He had a lot of misfortune coming his way. I feel like he's on the precipice of some strong results, but the points tally has predominantly been from Oliver this year. Do you then look at sticking someone like Taylor Barnard in? He's got experience with the Nissan in powertrain. Do you put him in the second seat maybe to try and bolster their chances next year?
Well, I tell you, if I would be a manufacturer, I would definitely look for Taylor Barnard, because he's been showing great performance, and he's young. You can build a future with him. You can grow the team together with him. So yeah, I think there might be teams like Nissan who knows what's going on at Porsche. So yeah, could be interesting candidate, I think, for manufacturers to think of someone like Taylor Barnard.
Well, we know that Ian James would love to keep a hold of Taylor in whatever guise that team looks like in 2026, and we'll see how that situation develops as we look at Oliver Rowland going through the final couple of corners, out onto the start-finish straight, kicks up a fair old bit of dust, improves, but only up to 13th quickest. That wasn't a full attack mode lap, though. He's only in 300 kilowatts at that point. As we look at Tommaso Volpe watching on inside the Nissan garage at the moment. Team radio for Di Grassi.
So it's 6:10.
The problem is still oversteer like crazy, the car, man. I told you the difference was not enough what we did.
A bit of sassy Di Grassi there on team radio.
Not happy. He likes to engineer the car himself, so sometimes, yeah, maybe they were not talking the same level of oversteer, and but as an engineer, you want to go step by step, and you don't do drastic changes. But yeah, you can see here he's fighting the wheel with the oversteer, especially in the entrance. It's something you don't really want to have. Here in the chicane is not too bad, the car rotates well, but in the longer curves he looks like he's struggling quite a lot. But I think all drivers do here. Like I said before, the rear tires are the ones who are suffering the most on the combined. But yeah, you try to set up your car mechanically a bit better, so maybe the step he wanted to do was more towards understeer, but probably will be for the next run.
Yeah, that team managing to score some points in Tokyo at Yamaha's home race. You see Di Grassi thumping his way over that penultimate curve. It is quite a pronounced bump now there as we look at Stoffel Van Dorn, one of the winners from Tokyo. Fantastic result from him. He could have actually gone on to take the greatest winning margin in Formula E. He did have a spin, but he still was in front by a commanding margin, which would have still been over that gap, but he then backed right off towards the end. I can't say I'm surprised. I mean, there was no pressure from behind. There's no point chucking it at the scenery if you don't need to.
No, especially in those conditions. I'm sure he was a bit nervous. It's not easy when you're like so far in the lead and you have too much time to think. But it's interesting what they've done. I think Formula E and the FIA have readdressed a little bit the way things work. From what I understand, he started on a lower sock. Like, it's not that he burned that much during the safety car phase. He started with a lower battery percentage, and now to avoid this, I think you're obliged to start with 100%.
Correct. Yeah.
So these things won't be possible anymore.
Yeah. So state of charge is what Andre is referring to there. So essentially, that's how much charge is in the battery, essentially going at the start of the race, and Van Dorn started a bit lower. So that situation has been addressed for Stoffel Van Dorn. We'll see how it develops over the course of the season, how it changes the complexion of those pit boost races there as well. It's going to be interesting going into this one because atmospheric conditions, obviously, it's very, very hot in Shanghai, and there's a bit of concern amongst the teams, amongst the drivers in the paddock. Concern over what the batteries are going to look like. Are they going to suffer from de-racing because of the temperatures and so on? How are they going to manage the thermal efficiency of that in the race conditions?
Yeah, the only way to manage this is to drive as efficient as possible, like sometimes even drive a little bit under the ideal efficient target that you would calculate for that race. So in order to stress a bit the battery less, and be a bit more efficient in that way. So I think also it's due to the pit boost that you put a lot more stress on the battery with that extra energy. So it is also a competitive aspect which each team needs to consider, and do best. So that is part of Formula E's challenge as well, to extract the most out of your hardware. And yeah, on certain circuits, these issues can occur. It's just like other issues on other tracks.
Yeah, certainly can do. So 7 drivers now inside the 1 minute 9 second barrier. So times significantly quicker than they were here last year. No surprise there at all, given the performance difference we've seen between Gen 3 and Gen 3 Evo. But we're keen to see how that develops over the remainder of the weekend as well. FP2 takes place tomorrow morning, quite early actually, 8 AM. So relatively, what's the word I'm looking for there? Relatively cool, that's the word. There we are. It's early in the morning or late in the afternoon, or depending on wherever you are. It's one of those where you sort of look at it and you think, well, how relevant is that free practice 2 session going to be in terms of what it will look like? I suppose it will be more relevant for qualifying, but then in the race it'll be more akin to what we've got on track for FP1 here.
Yeah, that's the difficulty for Formula E, to have free practice in cooler conditions and then qualifying in warmer conditions. I remember back in season 4 or 5, we would go to qualifying with completely unknown feeling, and you only had that one lap, so you were starting the qualifying in a very nervous condition. But now the qualifying format has changed. You have the group qualifying where you have a few more shots.
Jack, do you want a rear bar change as well for the next run?
Yeah. Give me like 0.7 if you can.
Yeah, 0.75 coming in.
So talking about a rear bar change there, Andre.
It's not the same bar that you are used to.
No, normally those bars yeah, exactly.
It's not the gym bar.
No,
either.
exactly. No, disappointing.
Yeah, they're talking about the
10 kilos is enough for me, mate.
they're talking about the roll bar. So basically, you're trying to achieve a certain mechanical balance between the front and the rear of the car, and that is a big tool for the car balance. So it probably tries to softening the rear bar, so going to a softer position, meaning that the car will generate more grip and will shift the balance a bit more to understeer.
What's the downside of that, though? Like you say, you trade off oversteer for understeer. Does it cause any more wear in the tyres?
Well, it makes the car a bit lazier, like it is a bit less sharper because the energy gets a bit less quick into the tire. So that's how it will create a bit more grip. But yeah, the downside is that the car will be a bit lazier, and then you will have a bit of understeer as well. But yeah, it's a great tool to play with. You know, we talk in percentage. For example, I'm just throwing a number out there, but like the mechanical balance is 57%. So you usually shift it between 1, 2, or 3% between forwards and rearwards, and then that gives you a great change in balance.
Da Costa's just gone to the top of the pile by 0.4 of a second over Nick Casti, 109.280 for the Portuguese driver. Some big changes going on here by the looks of things for David Beckman. They've got the
different springs.
Yeah, different springs, just want to say, going into that. So making it stiffer or softer, presumably, to give him a better balance on the car, give him a bit of feeling. And 19th quickest for Beckman at the moment. He's a couple of seconds off the pace. The field spread actually a lot greater here than we have seen other circuits. I mean, we've got 1 second separating 12 drivers, 2 seconds separating 22 drivers. So
yeah, interestingly, it is a track where all drivers can easily drive to the limit and explore more, but on the other hand, the car and the tires are a huge effect. So if you're not extracting that 1 lap peak grip out of the tires, you can actually be quite a bit off.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So we'll see how the drivers are going to fail. See whether Beckman can make any improvements in the remaining 6 minutes of this session. We look here at Lucas Di Grassi on a full attack mode lap at the moment. See that with the pink lights illuminating the car, the roll hoop, and on the rear wing as he makes his way through turn 5. You can see a driver's eye view on the right-hand side of your picture there as well, down into turn 6. Expect this to be the scene of some drama in the races. We did see some drama for Eno Mortara in one of the races last year, if memory serves me correctly, where he ended up getting collected by another driver. Either way, Degrassi makes his way through this middle sector and then flings it into the final couple of corners. Da Costa also on a push mode lap. So last 6 minutes now of this session. White flag is waving, so that signals that there's a slower driver in front. And for the driver to just be aware, I'm sure they'll be on the radio as Degrassi comes over the timing line, goes and improves to 11th quickest then. Still a fair old way away, still just under a second shy of Da Costa's time.
Yeah, quite a big gap. You could see in the last corner he was actually understeering out of the last corner with a four-wheel drive. It must be quite difficult to set up the car for both power modes, because you're fighting oversteer in. Let's hear what he says.
Yeah, the brakes feel left to right mu and straight line braking. It's not very good.
Copy. Any feedback on oscillations, please?
What a technical term there, I'm sure, from Oliver Rowland.
Is the beep there?
Is that for car or driver?
Yeah, I think what he was trying to refer to is he was not happy with the brakes, maybe between left and right. I mean, most of the braking is done by the MGU, by the motor at the on the front and the rear axle, but when you don't have enough deceleration from the electric motor, you top up with the brake discs. But if the brake discs are different temperature left and right, it is a bit annoying because the car is not going braking in a straight way. You lock up one wheel, so it takes away a lot of the consistency and the way you want to plan your corner.
Well, if you remember back to Miami, he was complaining about similar issues with the car actually and not being able to unlock the performance. Let's see what it looks like. He's nearly 2/10 of a second down already in the first sector here, Oliver Rowland. So clearly not happy with the balance of that car under braking. How are the teams going to be able to turn that around after this session? What will they be doing, going into a debrief, and how do they work out and change this car so that it is performing how he wants to tomorrow?
Well, everything is analyzed, obviously, and they sit down and look at the data, and then they will for sure come up with a reason why, and for every reason you have a little drawer that you open and you put things together. So that is down to all the preparation work. You come to a weekend like that for all the eventualities. You put test items, but in your run plan, but you also put a lot of solutions in case, okay, we complain about understeer or oversteer, we have this and that, but there's so many layers to that. And yeah, in case it's for him the brakes, technically maybe they can switch to another set, but it's also limited. You don't have unlimited amount of sets, but could be also settings like the way they programmed the car to brake in a certain way, or can be also sometimes just the way you warm them up. So yeah, it's all on the data, and I'm sure they will come up with a solution.
Well, he'll be opening that kitchen drawer, I'm sure, and probably throwing the kitchen sink at it if it doesn't work out to be too much of an improvement. 12th quickest, I should say, for Oliver Rowland at the moment. His teammate Norman Nato currently 7th fastest. Last couple of minutes then left of this session. Let's keep an eye out for the timing screen and see who's making improvements. Tictum goes up to 7th fastest for the Cupra Kiro team. You can see in terms of the track performance, Sector 1 and 2 dominated by the two Tag Heuer Porsche cars, but it's Mahindra in the 3rd sector where they've got the advantage, and that tallies up because the Freeze is currently 2nd quickest. Just looking here at Verline making his way down in towards turn 6, obviously on a cool-down lap at the moment, nowhere near pushing the limits at this stage of the session. 4th fastest for Pascal Verline currently. In terms of his Drivers' Championship defence, he sits 2nd in the standings. He is 77 points adrift, though, of Oliver Rowland, but then again, no one's been able to get even within a sniff of Oliver Rowland over the last few weekends in particular. Since Monaco, he has not finished any worse than 2nd in the races. His worst results of the season are a 14th place in Sao Paulo and a 10th place in Miami. Compare that to Verline, he had a DNF, of course, in Sao Paulo, where he ended up upside down. and he had a 15th place in Jeddah and also for the first race in Tokyo. But other than that, it has been a relatively strong season for Pascal Wehrlein. The upshot being that the second race in Tokyo meant that he was able to jump ahead of teammate Da Costa and also Taylor Barnard, courtesy of both of those drivers DNFing. So we'll see what that battle continues to look like in the Drivers' Championship and see whether anybody can get close to thwarting the challenge of Oliver Rowland. Given the problems he's been complaining about with the car, Andre, I know it's only the early stages of the weekend, but is it a cause for concern there for Ollie?
It is not ideal because there's always a trend, you know. Even you have issues or there are bigger reasons for your performance not to be as you want. There is always a trend. Like when it comes naturally easy, it means you have the pace. So it's, I mean, his teammate Norman Nato is in 8th place. Taylor Barnard with the same powertrain is in 6th place. So there are some references for them there to look up at or to look up to. So yeah, for sure he won't be as happy, and also he got a bit used to be at the front as well. So he'll be definitely a bit frustrated after this session if it stays like this.
No doubt about it. So checkered flag's about to come out, by the way. Just a notice coming up on our timing screen. Verne under investigation for a pit boost state of charge infraction. So we'll keep an eye on that and see whether that develops into something, or whether he gets away with a fine or a warning from race direction. Either way, we look here at Jake Dennis, currently slowest of the pile at the moment, but he is on a full attack mode lap as he makes his way through the final sector. What does it look like here then for Dennis? Personal best in sector 1, personal best in sector 2, aims it for the timing line and crosses it now, goes up to 8th quickest then. So a marked improvement there for the season 9 world champion. Buemi currently 21st as he then comes to take the checkered flag and doesn't improve. Evans also mired down in 20th as well. So 2 Jaguar powered cars on the fringes, and indeed one outside of the top 20. So not ideal at all there. Evans also not improving on his final flying lap. And given he took victory here a year ago, that is not the way he'll have wanted to have started his weekend. Nato improves up to 7th fastest as he takes the checkered flag. What about Wehrlein and De Vries? Do they make any improvements? De Vries stays 2nd fastest. Da Costa, one of the last drivers then to cross the line in this session. You can just see him here as he comes now to take the checkered flag, and he will retain the top spots at the end of that first free practice session. So there we go then. Positive start to the day for Tag Heuer Porsche and Antonio Felix da Costa, but also De Vries and Hughes looking pretty handy in there as well. Mahindra and Stellantis powered cars respectively, all pretty handy. And contrasting fortunes for Jaguar. Cassidy 5th fastest at the end of free practice 1. His teammate Evans though mired down in 20th, and quite a significant gulf between them, about a second of a gap.
Oh, yeah, I outbraked myself in T6. But the last chicane, should have been better.
So Da Costa making a slight mistake then on his final flying lap, but still pretty happy with his performance, and rightfully so. A track that he's gone well at, took victory here a year ago in the second race of the weekend, and really sort of catapulted himself into the title race here last year.
Yeah, definitely, and he's for sure going to be a strong contender for this race. He's doing really well on these races strategically. He's got a very great overview of the race and planning his way through the field. It's one of definitely his biggest strengths, and we've seen him excel. So I'm looking forward to seeing him race here and do well.
So that's Robin Freitz just getting caught up behind one of the DS Penske's. He was slightly wide and offline, and clearly asking a bit too much of the tyres, straight off to the outside of the circuit.
The front tyres are cooked. I got nothing.
Okay, copy.
Knocking the front everywhere. Nightmare.
Another driver complaining about the tyres then, Jean-Eric Verne. Where did he end up in that session? He was down in 18th quickest as well, so he will not be a happy boy.
So his car seems to be a bit more on the understeer side and putting a lot of slip angle on the front tires, creating too much temperature on the front, and yeah, locking up and not being able to stop the car properly and place the car. So yeah, the same way that maybe Di Grassi had too much oversteer, maybe they're a bit too much on the understeer side.
So drivers now just doing their practice starts in the race. It's incidentally the only time we ever see drivers in 4-wheel drive, but in 300 kilowatts of power. How do they do the start of a race in Formula E, Andre, for those who are perhaps shooting in for the first time? What's the process?
Oh, each team have different process, but basically it is a way. So you go full throttle, but before you obviously you go full throttle, you activate the start function, and the best way is to have it on some paddle. There's 3 paddles on each side, and we used to have it on the top right paddle. So when you activate the whole start function, you just dump the paddle, and the car does everything by itself, and you select a certain amount of grip, which is defined by the team judging the grip.
Absolutely. Well, free practice 1 comes to a conclusion with Antonio Felix da Costa ending up fastest. Let's go down and get the latest from the team.
Quite an interesting session there, Billy. Some expected results, some unexpected results. I mean, it's good to see Antonio Felix da Costa up there fighting in P1 at the moment, although a little bit unhappy about how the session ended. But Porsche, as we predicted, looking strong.
Yeah, they look really strong there. I think the fact both cars are in the mix there, it's a good start to the weekend. Obviously, we expect things to change in Formula E. The teams and drivers that have struggled in that session will make changes overnight to the car setup to try and get back to a working window where they can get the most out of the car. But it's always good to start a weekend with strong form, and having both cars up there just makes me feel even more confident that potentially they can close that gap down to Oliver Rowland. I
mean, the fact that Oliver Rowland is down in P15, is he going to be going back to the garage, scratching his head, worrying, or is it just, you know, a tiny little tweak that makes all the difference going into FP2?
It seemed like a similar issue to what he had in Miami in terms of the balance of the car. This is a more similar circuit to what we had in Miami as well, and that was one of his worst weekends, of few bad weekends for him in the championship so far. So I think the frustration's almost added because it's something that probably feels like he's had before early in the season. He would have probably hoped that, okay, if we go back to a circuit like Miami, we'll be in a better place. Yeah. But right now, he's not quite at one with that car, particularly in the braking zones. And as a driver, that just removes all your confidence, which he's been building across the season up till now.
Yeah, and what was interesting was hearing Lucas Di Grassi on the team radio there, basically kind of saying, look, I told you to do this and you didn't do it. Obviously complaining about oversteering. But again, is that something that they can rectify in time for FP2?
Yeah, the teams will sort of have an idea in their heads coming into a weekend of, you know, through the sim work that they do and the other tools that they have at their disposal, where they think the car should be as a starting point. The drivers from the time in the sim might have a slightly different direction in their heads of what they think will be the right way to go about it. So sometimes those frustrations, particularly that you can hear in the first session, they come out on the radio.
He's behind you! Hello, James Barkley. How are you?
Not too bad, and it's nice to be back out here in China.
It is, isn't it? And it's always nice to have a chat with you. I mean, there's quite a lot to discuss, isn't there? Where shall we start? Shall we start? I know your team have been so busy getting Mitch Evans' car ready for today, because after that big moment, the incident with Nick de Vries, then he had that huge impact crash. I think it was 26 Gs, which sounds rather terrifying. But you've been very busy with the whole rear end of the car.
Yeah, that's right. You know, sometimes you have a tough weekend, and Tokyo was that. Yeah, really unfortunate for Mitch in the first race. Contact from Nick, yeah, it was a big accident. Actually, it was a Nick incident that was 26G, and that completely rode off the rear end of Mitch's car. That took a complete powertrain out. And then obviously the small mistake with massive consequences on Sunday, which very rare from Mitch to make a mistake like that in quali, but he's really pushing. And yeah, it's frustrating in a way though that ultimately that kind of incident on Saturday brings us into a 60-place grid penalty for this weekend. But we focus on the positives, and that's continue to evolve our performance this weekend.
James, just for a bit of clarity on that situation, that 60-place grid penalty, is that something that can you can get rid of in the race tomorrow? So for Sunday, Mitch can have a clean slate?
Exactly, yeah. So we, in essence, have a 20-place grid penalty and a stop-go penalty, which clears the slate, so to speak, for Sunday. And yeah, we use tomorrow as a day to honestly get as much out of it as we can as a learning, and then, yeah, fresh day on Sunday to go and hopefully put that into good practice.
And James, what is it like in the team at the moment? You know, we're so used to talking to you after podium finishes, celebrations, you're defending the team's championship, you were fighting for the driver's title last year. What is it that's not quite gone to plan so far this season?
Well, honestly, we've got to be honest and say there's some things clearly that we have to improve on. But the reality is also we've had a really, sometimes you have really tough luck. And if I look at the car, yes, with some performance defined, the tyres are really, really specific this year. You see that in amongst the field this year. One moment people are fast, next moment they're not. And we've been, I would say, victim to that to some degree, and we're trying to get on top of that. The car has pace, though. If you look at our performance, Mitch topping FP3 in Monaco, we've been through a number of duels this year. But Mitch has also had a massive amount of misfortune. He should have been ultimately fighting for a podium in Jeddah when he had a brake-by-wire failure. We had a battery issue in Monaco when he was potentially fighting for a podium. He was taken out by Nick when he potentially was fighting for a podium. He had the Andretti have a power cut in front of him. Mexico when he's maybe fighting for a fourth or a fifth. He should be much higher up in the championship this year. So some of it is in our control, some of it is out of our control. But we can only control the controllables, and that's the thing we have to focus on. What can we do to improve? And that's what we're working really hard to do. But the green shoots are there. We're making a lot of positions in the races. If we can qualify well up front, I have no doubt we'll be fighting for really strong points and for podiums.
So you're going to turn it around this weekend in Shanghai?
This is a world championship now, which has a number of teams and manufacturers, Nick, that can win races. You know that. This is the most competitive year for a long time. So, I'd like to think once we are really capable to bring the race to everybody, I think we can be that way. But we've got some work to do, and we'll keep working hard as we always do. We're a team that's fought for a world championship every year for the last 4 years. So, we don't rest up on our laurels, and we're going to be trying hard to get ourselves back there.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, James, for talking to us.
Thank
Fighting
you.
talk, as always. And this is a point in the season where all of the teams have been on the podium, which just shows how competitive this championship really is. Now, let's head down to Saunders CB, who is with our quickest man in FP1, Antonio Felix Costa.
Antonio Felix Costa, on a weekend where you and Pascal are trying to bring the fight to Oliver Rowland, you've started it pretty well, top of the timings in FP1.
Yeah, it's always a good sign, but I don't think it means much. Obviously, those are 350 laps, which, I mean, it's always positive. Looked like on 300 laps, so we're kind of lacking maybe a 10th, but there's a few things to clean up on our side, on the driving, on settings, on setup, so, I mean, I'm sure we're going to have to do a small step tonight because everyone's, going to be looking through their data and going to bring some improvements for tomorrow, but definitely a decent start, yeah.
This was quite a pivotal point in your season last year, a big result, and it started a train of even better results on from there. Do you think it's the same poignancy now, it's just as important this season?
Yeah, a little bit different circumstances, but, to be realistic, it's always hard to close almost 80 points on someone like Oliver and Nissan, but equally, it's not called formally easy, So, very unpredictable. And the other thing that we have to say is that we're just now starting the second half. So, yeah, it's his to lose, but lots of races to go.
Thanks, Antonio. Back to you, Nikki.
Okay.
Thanks very much, guys. Always good to hear from Antonio Felix Costa, who's had... Well, it's been highs and lows this season, hasn't it? An emotional season, I think, you can look back on so far.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, every driver on the grid can probably say they've had plenty of highs and lows, apart from Oliver Rowland. He's probably the one driver who's been on the podium 7 out of 9 races. You say he's had it fairly smooth sailing, but I think we heard from James, talking about the pace in that car and how Mitch should have more points. I think both the Porsche drivers would probably look at moments throughout the season and think we could have had more points too. And, as much as it's, that'll be hard and it'll weigh on their minds, they need to kind of just focus on race by race and making up that deficit as much as they can. Just like James again mentioned in the interview, controlling the controllables. That in Formula E where, anyone can be on the podium, it feels like. That's so important to have at the front of your mind.
Yeah.